My 7-year-old daughter, who had done absolutely nothing wrong, was standing there with a gun aimed at her by Karen, the unhinged president of our HOA. That was the moment everything exploded, but the story actually began earlier. I had just come home from work, completely drained, the kind of tired that makes you want to peel off your boots and collapse on the couch without saying a word. As I walked toward the house, I noticed something jammed into my mailbox. Another envelope, another bright yellow HOA violation notice. This one was practically shouting at me for the supposed offense of leaving my car parked overnight in my own driveway. At first, I felt my anger surge. I wanted to rip the notice apart right there. But curiosity got the better of me, so I checked the HOA bylaws, and unbelievably, it actually was listed as a violation. Still, something about it didn't sit right. I started looking around the neighborhood. My neighbors had their cars parked in their driveways, too. Some of them had 2 or 3 vehicles sitting there every single night like a miniature car lot. I knew because I saw it with my own eyes every day. Yet none of them were getting violation letters, so why was I the only one? The unfairness gnawed at me. I was irritated, sure, but I told myself it wasn't worth the headache. I'd just pay the fine and move on with my life. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy top-notch HOA drama. A few days later, I stepped outside early in the morning with a hot cup of coffee in my hand, enjoying the quiet air before the neighborhood fully woke up. When I opened my mailbox, though, my stomach dropped. Another envelope. It sat there like some kind of cursed present waiting for me to open it. This time, the violation wasn't about the car. No. This time, I was being fined for having a basketball hoop in my driveway. A basketball hoop. The same type that nearly every house on the street had. Some families even had 2 sets up for their kids. I froze with my coffee halfway to my lips. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Suddenly, why it all became crystal clear. This wasn't about HOA rules, this was personal. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, had decided to single me out. It felt like she had my name pinned to a dartboard and was throwing violations at it for fun. I paced around my living room like a trapped animal, the papers crumpled in my fists. The money wasn't the problem. I could pay the fine if I had to. What drove me crazy was being targeted, being painted as the neighborhood problem when I knew I wasn't. And the most ridiculous part. Karen herself had a basketball hoop sitting proudly in her own driveway, but somehow her property never showed up on the violation list. The anger inside me burned hotter with every second, but beneath that frustration, another thought began to form. A plan. If Karen wanted to make this personal, then fine. She was about to learn she had picked the wrong person to mess with. Before we go deeper into this story, drop a comment below and tell us what country or city you're watching from. We always love seeing how far these stories travel. With that thought in my head, I marched straight up to Karen's perfectly manicured porch and knocked on her door. She opened it almost immediately, wearing that smug smile that instantly sent my blood pressure through the roof. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "There's no way you're fining me for having a basketball hoop in my driveway," I said flatly. "Half the neighborhood has one." "Including you?" Karen leaned against the doorframe like she was posing for the cover of a villain magazine, arms folded across her chest. Then she spoke in the nastiest tone imaginable. "Pay the fee," she said, "or deal with the consequences. I don't care if everyone else has one. You're the one I'm watching." My fists clenched so tight I thought my knuckles might crack. This wasn't just hypocrisy anymore. This was war. The days that followed felt like living inside a horror movie directed by the pettiest person alive. Karen started piling on $50 late fees for every single day I didn't pay the fine. My mailbox began to look like it had been hit by a paper explosion. Envelope after envelope showed up, each one louder and more aggressive than the last. At first, I tried to ignore them. I tossed every letter into an old shoebox without even opening it. But Karen wasn't finished, not even close, and she took the fight online. She started blasting my name across HOA platforms and the community group chat. Post after post appeared, accusing me of being irresponsible, lazy, and a lawbreaker who refused to respect neighborhood rules. She strutted around like she had uncovered some massive scandal. Neighbors began whispering when I walked past. Some gave me sympathetic looks, clearly realizing something weird was going on. Others smirked, enjoying the drama from the sidelines. Karen had basically created a public trial, without a courtroom. She'd corner people on the sidewalk, wagging her finger as she described what a terrible neighbor I supposedly was. I caught her gossiping at block parties, whispering to her little circle of supporters while they laughed like a pack of hyenas. And the worst part? At the time, I thought that was the end of it. I assumed Karen's entire plan was to embarrass me into submission, to bury me under a mountain of overdue notices and public humiliation until I gave in. I thought the mailbox attacks and neighborhood gossip were as far as she'd go. I couldn't have been more wrong. Karen wasn't finished sharpening her claws. She was preparing to show her fangs. I could feel it every time we crossed paths. The way her eyes narrowed when she looked at me reminded me of a cat stalking its prey. Something worse was coming. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go. One afternoon, I was in the backyard fixing a loose hinge on the gate when I heard the familiar hiss of the school bus stopping at the corner. A moment late, my daughter Sophia hopped off the bus, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders as she skipped down the sidewalk. Her braids swung back and forth as she headed toward the house. Seeing her always washed away the stress of my day, a smile spread across my face. But this time, something felt wrong. Sophia stopped at the front door. She didn't open it. She just stood there frozen, her small hand hovering inches from the doorknob. Her eyes were wide, like she had just seen a ghost. Then I heard it, a scream that cut straight through my chest. "Dad!" My blood instantly turned to ice. I dropped the screwdriver and sprinted around the side of the house, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might explode. And then I saw the scene waiting on my porch. Karen, standing there, holding a gun, pointed directly at my 7-year-old daughter. For a moment, the entire world stopped. My jaw tightened, my hands started shaking, and my vision narrowed until the only thing I could see was Karen's twisted smile behind that gun. My daughter was crying uncontrollably, her voice cracking as she screamed, "Dad!" Tears streamed down her face while her small body trembled with fear. "Are you insane?" I shouted, my voice booming so loudly that neighbors began rushing out of their homes. Phones appeared everywhere in an instant, people recording every single second of Karen's breakdown. Karen's eyes sparkled with something that looked like pure madness. "You'd better pay what you owe," she sneered, her finger twitching dangerously close to the trigger. "Or I might just pull this. Believe me, I won't hesitate." I could barely breathe. My fists tightened so hard that my nails dug into my skin. Around us, neighbors gasped. Some yelled at her to drop the weapon. Others stood there frozen, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Someone shouted that they had already called 911. The entire street was filled with whispers, shocked voices, and the unmistakable sound of phones recording the unbelievable scene in real time. But Karen didn't flinch. If anything, she looked proud, like she was proving some kind of point to the entire neighborhood. My daughter's cries echoed through the air, each one stabbing into my chest. This wasn't HOA drama anymore. This had turned into a nightmare, and Karen had just crossed a line that there was absolutely no coming back from. Before I even noticed the flashing lights, the sound of sirens tore through the chaos. Neighbors stepped aside like waves parting as 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop in front of my house. Karen, still gripping the gun, turned toward the crowd with a warped, victorious grin and shouted, "Finally! Officers, arrest this man. He's refusing to comply with HOA rules." The arrogance in her voice was unbelievable, dripping with poison as if she genuinely believed she was the one in charge of the situation. But the officers weren't playing along. One cop immediately drew his weapon and shouted, "Ma'am, put the gun down now." His voice wasn't polite neighborhood conversation. It was cold, sharp. The kind of command that slices through the air and demands obedience. The moment Karen's grip loosened even slightly, my daughter ran straight into my arms. Her small body shook violently as she clung to me. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tighter than I ever had before. Karen glanced nervously between the officer's weapon and the crowd of neighbors filming her every move. Slowly, she lowered the gun. But not before throwing one last venom-filled glare in my direction, like she still believed she had some kind of power over the situation. Within seconds, the officers had her in handcuffs. They marched her straight to the cruiser and pushed her into the back seat while the crowd erupted into shouts and stunned disbelief. Phones were still raised everywhere. I already knew the footage would be all over the internet by morning, but public embarrassment wasn't enough for me. Not after she pointed a gun at my child. That same night, I called my lawyer. By the next morning, we had a list of charges that would crush Karen far harder than any HOA violation ever could. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, brandishing a firearm, intentional emotional distress, and several more. When court day arrived, the atmosphere was intense. Karen walked in wearing an orange jail uniform, looking nothing like the smug HOA president who used to parade around the neighborhood. Her hair was messy, and the confidence she once carried had completely vanished. During the trial, every second of her meltdown played on a large courtroom screen. Neighbors took the stand one after another, testifying about what they had seen. The video footage showed everything. The threats, the gun, my terrified daughter. The judge didn't take long to decide. Karen was sentenced to 15 years in prison. On top of that, the court ordered her to pay $1.5 million in punitive damages to my family and me. And as if that wasn't enough, she permanently lost her right to own a firearm. Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, who once ruled the neighborhood through intimidation, was led out of the courtroom in shackles. Her little empire of petty control had completely crumbled into dust. The end. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more HOA showdowns like this. And tell us in the comments, do you think Karen got what she deserved? Also, if you really enjoyed this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit the super thanks button below. It helps us keep bringing you more wild HOA chaos.